Hello, my friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family. Thank you guys so much for joining me once again. So, many of you might be familiar with the concept of ascended masters. And, ascended masters, the thought is that there are beings that have gone beyond the law of cause and effect, the law of karma. They've become so selfless that they are no longer affected by these laws, and they can go back and merge up with source. They could go to a much higher dimension of being, and yet they choose to basically come back down to earth to guide us, to help us get back on the right path when we are being led astray. And I always found it really interesting that there's certain time periods in our history where we'll have like these amazing beings all of a sudden pop up. There'll be like 3 or 4 of the most amazing thinkers and feelers incarnating in a small window of time. And it just always struck me as, very curious, like somewhere around 500, 550 BC. We had some amazing minds all of a sudden show up, and amazing hearts too. To help illuminate us and to help lead us out of what has been really just a history of nonstop duality, division, struggle, violence, and war. And so one of these beings that I've always found extremely curious is Babaji. And Babaji is an amazing being. When you start looking at the stories and you wonder, what legends are true? Is this really true? Did this person really ever live? Are they still alive? Well, one of the things we should look at is the fact that we see all across the globe, there are legends of people living thousands of years, and something happened to humanity, and, perhaps it was tinkering with our DNA. Perhaps it was an assortment of things going on. But something happened to leave humanity in the state we have found it in now. But the legends was that there was a golden age and people lived thousands of years in harmony, in peace. When we see the return of Christ and Christ comes back in his ascended state, he no longer has to eat or drink at all. But if he chooses to, he can. He looked a little different to his disciples. They didn't even quite recognize him at first. He had a different appearance slightly. And then they recognized it was their master, the one that they loved so dearly. Babaji is somebody that is held in very high reverence in the Hindu world. And so he is a being that is thought to be here guiding the planet, and has been guiding the planet for thousands of years, perhaps even longer. And there's some differences in the beliefs of, his situation as far as, has he been here in just one body all this time? Has he come back and taken several incarnations? The whole concept of an avatar is one that is deeply entrenched in the Hindu belief system. And with Vishnu, for instance, Vishnu's avatars are some of the most famous. And so Vishnu, many people are familiar with Krishna, and then the one right before that, Rama. And the one to come, Kalki, that's still one incarnation of Vishnu that many people believe could be happening right now or shortly will come to pass. Vishnu is the preserver. Shiva is the destroyer, but he's the destroyer of the illusion. And he's the destroyer of the ego. He's the destroyer of ways that are not in alignment with the highest and the best for us, for the planet, and not in accordance with our higher selves and ultimately source, prime creator, God. So Babaji is thought to be an incarnation of Shiva. And the fascinating thing is with Babaji is there are quite a few people that say they have saw him. And actually many that have been taught by him. And as we said, he is thought to be an incarnation of Shiva himself. Shiva is one of the big three, along with Brahma and Vishnu, creator, preserver, and destroyer. And Mount Kailash. Mount Kailash is a fascinating place, and so this is supposed to be Shiva's abode on Earth, and also the place where Babaji lives most of the time, or has been thought to have lived. Isn't it interesting? You could almost make out a smiling face of Shiva in this picture of Mount Kailash. Pretty interesting there. So Babaji is fascinating, and it's just one of those things that I would love to know the real truth behind who he was, who he is, and exactly who did he teach, because he's supposedly taught many people. Now, a lot of what we know about Babaji has come through Yogananda, and Yogananda brought Kriya Yoga to the West. And Autobiography of a Yogi, if you haven't read it, is a wonderful book. And it shows you what can be done through meditation and discovering, how we can rewrite our programs and manipulate the matrix that we find ourselves in. So, as it says, there are no historical records relating to the birth and life of Maha Avatar. So Maha is great. So great avatar, Babaji, or great incarnation, Babaji. And Baba is kind of like a fatherly word, and Ji is respect or teacher. So it's almost like our fatherly teacher. Paramahamsa Yogananda has written in Autobiography of a Yogi that the deathless avatar has resided for untold years in the remote Himalayan regions of India, revealing himself only to a very rare blessed few. It is Maha Avatar Babaji who revived in this age the lost scientific meditation technique of Kriya Yoga, and bestowing Kriya initiation on his disciple Lahiri Mahasaya. Babaji said, "The Kriya Yoga that I am giving to the world through you in this 19th century is a revival of the same science that Krishna gave millenniums ago to Arjuna, and that was later known to Patanjali." And Patanjali, if you don't know, wrote the Yoga Sutras, and so I would hardly recommend a study of that, and at some point we will definitely get into that as well. So this Kriya Yoga was given to Patanjali and also to Christ and to St. John, St. Paul, and other disciples. So what we find is, as we talked about St. Issa, there's a lot of legends that connect these amazing gurus, rishis. So the rishis are thought to be very much like the ascended masters, and the rishis are the ones that channeled the Vedas. So they are the ones that actually wrote the Vedas, gave us the Vedas, and passed on that knowledge as well. The thing is that it's very inclusive and not exclusive in the sense that everybody's on the same team. If you're working for God, Prime Creator, Source, if you're working out of love and light, then even though there might be different words, slightly different dogma, you're on the same team. You're working for the good of humanity and the good of the world. So shortly before Paramahamsa Yogananda left for America in 1920, Maha Avatar Babaji came to Yogananda Ji's home in Calcutta, where the young monk sat deeply praying for divine assurance regarding the mission he was about to undertake. Babaji said to him, "Follow the behest of your guru and go to America. Fear not, you shall be protected. You are the one I have chosen to spread the message of Kriya Yoga into the West." And so it leads to liberation in the sense that it leads to self-realization, understanding that the spark of divinity lies within all of us. All of us. And we can awaken that. We are to awaken that. We are to cultivate that. We are to grow that within us. Has nothing to do with ego, because ego is just the outer semblance. Ego is the mask that we wear, and it develops over time when we're in the body. So it's so fascinating to see the legends of somebody like this, who has supposedly taught many, many great masters, and ultimately is thought to be an incarnation of Shiva himself. The northern Himalaya crags near Badrinarayan are still blessed by the living presence of Babaji, the guru of Lahiri Mahasaya. The secluded master has retained his physical form for centuries, perhaps for millenniums. The deathless Babaji is an avatara. This Sanskrit word means descent. The roots are ava, down, and tree, to pass. In the Hindu scriptures, avatara signifies the descent of divinity into flesh. Babaji's spiritual state is beyond human comprehension, Sri Yugotswar explained to me. The dwarfed vision of men cannot pierce to his transcendental star. Interesting. Because ultimately, at the core level, we are all stars. We are all stars. When we look up into the night sky and we see all the stars up there shining down on us, those are great beings. Those are beings of immensity. And yeah, they are literally, quote unquote, gods and angels, per se. Because, we've used the word God and gods in a way that perhaps was not as it was originally intended. But basically, these are like the devas, which are divine beings of a high class, a high order. We could think of them as the Elohim themselves. And many are familiar with that term. And so, of course, our own individual stars are not as great as the star of the sun that we have that is guiding us and nourishing us. But perhaps that's each of ours destiny. As we become more in service to others, we will grow, we will pull more life force to us, and we will also benefit and shine our light, our love, the divinity that lies within each of us on others, and bless others more and more in turn. And so, as we grow stronger and greater in the light of Source, we will also shine on others, and our light will become brighter. So it's pretty interesting to see how this is truly perceived through these lines of thinking. The Upanishads have minutely classified every state of spiritual advancement. A siddha, which is a perfected being, has progressed from a state of jivanmukta, which is freed while living, to that of paramukta, supremely free, full power over death. The latter has completely escaped from the Mayic thraldom in its reincarnational round. And again, Maya is illusion. The paramukta therefore seldom returns to a physical body. If he does return, he is an avatar, a divinely appointed medium of supernal blessings of the world and on the world. An avatar is unsubject to the universal economy. His body pure, visible as a light image, is free from any debt to nature. A casual gaze may see nothing extraordinary in an avatar's form, but on occasion it casts no shadow nor makes any footprint on the ground. These are outward symbolic proofs of an inward freedom from darkness and material bondage. Such a God-man alone knows the truth behind the relativities of life and death. Omar Khayyam, so grossly misunderstood, sang of this liberated man in the immortal scripture, the Rubaiyat. Ah, moon of my delight, who knowest no wane, the moon of heaven is rising once again. How often hereafter rising shall she look through this same garden after me in vain? So the moon of delight, who knowest no wane, is God, the eternal Polaris, anachronous never. The moon of heaven rising once again is the outward cosmos, fettered to the law of periodic recurrence. Through self-realization, the Persian seer had forever freed himself from the compulsory returns to the earth, the garden of nature or Maya, illusion. How oft hereafter rising shall she look after me in vain? What frustration of searching by a wandering universe for an absolute omission. Christ expressed his freedom in another way. And a certain scribe came and said unto him, Master, I will follow thee whithersoever thou goest. And Jesus said to him, The foxes have holes, the birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man hath nowhere to lay his head. Spacious with omnipresence, could Christ indeed be followed except in the overarching spirit? Krishna, Rama, Buddha, Patanjali were all amongst the ancient and Indian avatars. A considerable poetic literature in Tamil has grown up around Agastya, a South Indian avatar. He worked many miracles during the centuries preceding and following the Christian era, and is credited with retaining his physical form even to this day. So many people are not even aware that there have been many cases of those transcending this physical life and actually achieving what we would call a light body, a Merkaba, and becoming basically a being that could come and go, a true multidimensional being that can come and go at will. And so these beings, like Babaji, choose to stay and choose to lift us up, and they pray for us, they meditate and visualize for us, they teach us, and they guide us. And it's just a fascinating thing to look at. And I'll have all the links for you guys as well. So Babaji is one that's always fascinated me. And isn't it interesting that so many of our symbols, including the 6-pointed star that we associate, the Star of David, with Hebrew lineage, is also a symbol in Hinduism. And actually, there is strong evidence that a lot of these traditions come out of Hinduism. And as it is the oldest of the religions that we have upon the planet, basically all the shamanic traditions. So my friends, as always, thank you so much for joining me. I hope that you found this interesting. We'll go much deeper in upcoming videos. As always, my friends, like, share, subscribe. Thank you so much for your support on Patreon. It really keeps us going. And as always, God bless and namaste.